The cold was a heavy, silent thing that hung over the pine forest. Sunlight struggled to break through the dense canopy, managing only to cut sharp, golden stripes through the misty air. Elias moved slowly, his body a familiar ache against the chill. He was in his 70s, his face a map of deep lines, each one telling a story he'd long tried to forget. He was checking a snare trap. His movements automatic, worn smooth by years of solitude. Empty. Of course. He sighed, the sound loud in the oppressive quiet. The woods have been holding their breath all week, he thought. Not a squirrel, not a bird. Just cold. And this constant ache in his old bones. He pulled his worn jacket tighter round his thin frame and turned to head back to the small cabin that had been his world for 4 decades. And then he froze. A sound cut through the silence. It wasn't an animal. It was a woman humming a low, haunting tune that seemed to weave itself between the ancient pines. Elias's heart gave a sudden, hard thump against his ribs. He was miles from any town, from any road. No one ever came up this high. Hello. Who's there? He called out, his voice hoarse from disuse. He pushed through a thicket of wet ferns, bracing himself for whatever he might find. In a small, sun-dappled clearing, a young woman stood as if she had been waiting for him. She couldn't have been more than 25, and she was strikingly beautiful. Her dark hair curled wildly around her face, and she wore a simple white dress that seemed impossibly clean, completely untouched by the forest grime. Her feet were bare, pale and delicate against the dark, damp earth. And she wasn't shivering. She just looked at him, her gaze direct, with a bold, unnerving confidence that made the hair on his arms stand up. My God, Elias stammered, taking it all in. The impossible dress, the bare feet in the freezing mud, miss? Are you lost? You'll freeze to death out here. She smiled, a slow, knowing smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I'm not cold, Elias. He stopped breathing, his blood, which had been sluggish with age and cold, turned to ice. He took an involuntary step back, his hand clutching the front of his jacket. What did you call me? Panic began to rise in his chest, hot and sharp. I've lived on this mountain for 40 years. I have never seen this woman. How could she possibly know my name? You're wasting your time, you know, she said, her voice as smooth and clear as a mountain stream. The traps have been empty for weeks. You don't really expect to catch anything. You just like the walk. A chill that had nothing to do with the wind crawled up Elias's spine. Every word she said was true. He didn't hunt to eat anymore. He hunted to feel. To remember. Who are you? He demanded, his voice trembling. How do you know these things? You know who I am, she said, tilting her head slightly. You just don't want to admit it to yourself. I've never seen you before in my life. He insisted, his voice cracking. But you see Eleonora every night, don't you? The woman's voice was soft, but the words hit him like stones. In that tarnished silver frame by your bed. You talk to her. You tell her you miss her. Elias choked on his breath, a strangled sound of pure shock. Eleonora, his wife. Gone 20 years now. He stumbled back another step, his eyes wide with a terror that was bordering on madness. Stop it. How do you know that? You ask her for a sign, the woman continued, taking a single, graceful step toward him. Her bare feet made no sound at all on the thick carpet of dead leaves. Every night you ask her to send you a sign. And you ask her to forgive you? Forgive me. Elias whispered, the words barely audible. He was trembling violently now, the forest floor seeming to tilt beneath his feet. For letting her go, the woman stated, her face a beautiful, unreadable mask of calm. For not being there in the end. But she wasn't alone when she left, Elias. You know that. He was hyperventilating, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. The old, buried guilt was clawing its way up his throat. No, it's not possible, Lyra. The name hit him with the force of a physical blow. A broken sound escaped his lips, a sob that had been trapped in his chest for 2 decades. It was their secret name. The name they had chosen together, whispered only to each other in the quiet dark. It was the name you whispered to her belly, the woman said, now only a few feet away from him. Her voice was gentle, a stark contrast to the storm raging inside him. For the daughter you never got to hold. Tears began to stream down his weathered face. You can't be. I am, she said. Her voice was no longer challenging or mysterious. It was just soft and filled with a strange, profound sadness. I'm what would have been. She looked down at her own adult form, at the impossible white dress. This is the age I would have been if you hadn't lost us both on that day. Elias just stared at her, his mind reeling. This wasn't a ghost haunting him. This was something else. This was a reckoning. This was 20 years of his deepest, most secret grief made solid, standing right in front of him. What do you want? He finally managed to ask, his voice a raw whisper. She's tired of waiting for you, Elias. She's lonely. She sent me. The woman who called herself Lyra smiled, and this time it was a genuine, gentle smile that finally reached her eyes. I'm the sign you've been asking for. She held out her small, pale hand. It wasn't the hand of a child, but a woman's hand, strong, pale, and certain. It's time to come home. Elias looked at the offered hand. He looked at the dark, silent trees that had been his only companions for so long. He looked back at the impossible woman who knew the shape of his soul, who wore the face of his lost future. He was terrified, but beneath the terror, for the first time in 20 years, he felt a strange, pulling warmth spread through his chest. The ache in his bones began to fade, slowly, agonizingly. He began to lift his own trembling, withered hand to meet hers.